So today I'm going to show you the very basics of Niagara and what it's all about and how you can use it. So first off, when you load your project up, you want to get up the content drawer, and to do that, all you have to do is go to the bottom left and just click content drawer. And if you don't want to keep doing that over and over again, you can always dock in layout like that. So then you want to find an empty space. You can make a folder just somewhere empty, and you want to right click, go to Niagara system, click on it, and you'll be appeared with this screen. It basically says what each one does. Today we want to be using new system from selected emitters, and now we're provided with all these templates. They each have their own uses, but today we're going to be using the fountain. So add the emitter and click finish. Now you can name it whatever you want. We'll just be naming it tutorial effect, and then you want to double click on it and you'll be brought with this screen. It might look complicated at the start, but it's very easy to get the hand off. So I'll show you the basics. So at the bottom here we have our timeline. This is where you can see how long your effect will last, and in the middle you have your overview. Emitters are a part of the system. You can have multiple emitters, each with their own customization. Here on the left we have our viewport where you can see the effect, and if you move up and down the timeline or press spacebar, you can see your effect play. And right in the middle we have parameters. This is where you can use blueprint code to change, let's say, the color. If you want something to trigger and it changes the color, this is where you would be doing it. But for now, we'll be getting rid of that. There are 4 segments in the emitter. We have the emitter update, the particle spawn, the particle update, and the render. Starting off with the update, this is where you'll be choosing how long your emitter lasts for, or your effect lasts for, and the spawn rate. The particle spawn is when it spawns, this is what's going to happen to it. It will not do it again. So this is where you're going to be picking what size it is, what color, where it's going to spawn, if there's any velocity on it. And then we have particle update. This is what's going to happen during the emitter. So let's say you want some gravity to pull your emitter around. This is where you'll be doing it. If you want drag, if you want to scale your color so it goes from one color to the next, this is where it will be. And then you have render. So this is where you'll be picking if you want a mesh renderer or a sprite renderer or a ribbon renderer. Diving more in depth in the emitter state, this is where you'll be choosing how long it lasts. So we have infinite, once or multiple. You can choose, you can experiment. And this is the choosing of the rate. So let's say we set it to 200. 200 are going to spawn. And if you don't want a rate, if you just want a sudden burst, we can do the same here. We can do spawn, burst, instantaneous. We can click this. This will disable the item, the tick. So it's now disabled. We go to spawn count. Let's set it to 50. And it's just going to spawn 50. This is it resetting every time, every 2 seconds. Reset, reset. Because in our emitter state, we have the loop duration to 2 seconds. So let's say we set it to 1 second. 1, 1, 1. We'll get that back to 2. And spawn time, this is where we can delay it. So let's say we don't want it to spawn. If we want a staggered effect, this is where you'll be doing it. Well, for that to work, we have to set up the loop duration to 6. So that emitter plays out through it. And then now, boom, 5 seconds. So you can really play around. You have a lot of options. We'll set that back to 2. We'll set it back to 2 there. We'll disable the burst, keep the spawn rate on, and we'll go to initialize particle. So this is where you can experiment with lifetimes. So let's say we only want the particle to last for 0.1 to 0.5. So it's just sudden things, that's fine. This is where you'll be doing it. If you want to last 1 to 2, so you have a bit more lifetime, this is where you'll be doing it as well. We have lots of options here. We'll set it to 0.5 to 1. Then we also have color. So you can play around with the colors here. Any color you want. We can get into scaling the color so it will gradually change color. We'll set it to green for now. Mask mode. So if you want a really heavy particle, this is where you'll be doing it. So the gravity is going to be pulling it back down. Then we have sizes as well. We can choose from, we can have a uniform size, which means all the particles will be the same. So let's say we all want them 1. You can hardly see them. We'll set it to 3. Just about see them. Or we can have random. So we can have some that are small and some that are big. And this is the same for rotation, UV mode, and all the ones below. For now, we'll set it to 6 to 8. Okay, moving on. So this is where we're going to be picking what the location is. And we can pick a shape. So let's say we want a cylinder, box, torus, ring, or cone. This is where we'd be picking it. It's just simple shape location. And then we can also pick the radius. Let's say I want it to be quite wide. This is what it'd be like. Set it to 100. We can have it right in the center, so it all comes from the middle. We can also set the particle's velocity right off the bat, instead of doing it, updating it. So let's say we can set it to 100, to 200. This is the same thing with the random range float, so you can pick from minimum to highest, and it will randomly pick. So it hasn't got much velocity on it now. We can set it to 1000. And you can see that's going ham. So we'll just hit Control Z and we'll go that back to normal. And you can also have the angle. So let's say you want a wide burst. We can set it to 120. It'll be a wide burst. This is where we can experiment. In Particle Update, we can add lots of things. So let's say we want a gravity 980. This is standard. We can get rid of it. So we'll just go to the moon. There'll be no gravity affected by it. We'll put that back on. Drag is the same thing. Let's say we have 10 drag. It's not going to go that far. The drag is going to pull it back. We have 0. It's going to go very fast. Now we also have scale color. So this is where we can be changing the color. So right now, it's set to having the opacity go from 1 to 0, as you can see on this right side. We'll drag it out here. So you can see the alpha is being scaled from time at 0, so that is the beginning of the effect, to this will be the end of the effect because it's time 1. The curve always scales off the lifetime of the particle. So let's say we have a particle set to 5, it will be set off that. So 1 will mean 100%, and 0 will be 0%. Okay, so let's say we want to change the color over a certain time. All we have to do is go into Particle Update, because it will be updating every so often, the color. We'll go there, we'll drag it up above the solver's force. It's always good to keep the solve forces and velocity at the bottom, because that's where it needs to be. And we'll go, click this little drop down menu here, and we'll go color, color from curve. And let's say we'll have a nice blue. And also in this, if you want to make it glow, all we got up is the V value here. So let's say we up it to 200, and we'll have a nice little glow on it. And then we also set it to a nice yellow. Set it to 200. And you can see it's gradually, but because this opacity is at the bottom right now, all we have to do is set that to 1. And as you can see, all you gotta do to change when it turns yellow is just move this back slider back and it'll change. So let's say we want it right at the start. You can see a little bit of blue at the bottom. Let's say we have it halfway. It'll be turning around this area. And then we'll have a nice little glow. And that's the same with the opacity. So let's say you want it to still drain out at the end. It will, as you can see. And if you want to drain it out a bit sooner, we can do that as well. But that's best to keep it at the end. We'll drag this back to the end. And going into sprite render, the last one, here we can change the material. So let's say you have a custom texture you want to use. This is where you'll be changing it. Set alignment so you can have it facing to the camera, or you can have a velocity aligned. So let's say you want to make a projectile going forward. You set it to a velocity aligned, and the front of that projectile will always be shooting where it's going. So that's basically all of them, but of course we've got more that you can dive in that aren't just the default ones. So here we have a bunch of stuff. This is all able to be experimented with. I'll show you the main ones though. So we've got Vortex. Vortex is a nice one to use. You can set Vortex Force, and this will just have a simple, you can set it to 2000, and as you can see, it's spinning. And if we lower the velocity just a little bit, so we'll set it to 200 to 300. As you can see, we've got a nice little spin. And if we take the gravity off by just clicking that tick, there you go. Got a nice little swirly fountain. And there are a lot of other things in here that you can experiment with, like size, so we can scale the sprite size. Let's say we just click linear ramp down. These are all the templates you can use, so let's say we'll just use that. And slowly over time, it will get smaller. And this is set from 0%, so 0 of its lifetime, to 100% of its lifetime, which is back in initialized particle where you can set. So it's set for each individual particle. So that's the basics of an emitter. There's a lot more other stuff you can use in it, but for the basics, that's all you need to know. And of course, we can always duplicate this, Control C, Control V, and we have another one. So let's say we want this to not have velocity, and we'll change the sphere to a torus, so it's spawns in a circle. We'll drag it forward, as you can see, with a nice little torus shape. And if we want to make it bigger, we can, or smaller, we can. And then we can also change the color. So let's say we can set it to nice red and a nice purple. So you can stack them on each other. You could have this whole page could be filled with them. It's just how far you want to go. Thanks for watching. I hope you can create some spectacular effects with what I just showed you today. I'll be doing more and more videos, doing some tutorials on how to create some certain effects. So just make sure you hit that subscribe button for that.